Canada, Pacific time. So I'm just looking at my charts again here because, as we talked about before, Bitcoin, I put this trend line right here, or this resistance line right here, and because that's and Bitcoin came up and hit that the other day, or actually a few days ago. Let's go back to day chart here. So it came up, it broke this trend line, which it was following quite nicely, bouncing off and then bounced the lower one, bounce off, bounce the lower one. But then it broke through that a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, I guess, fell through and then broke up again. This time it held and it was quite a strong move. But it made it up to this resistance line here, drawn underneath these points here and along here. And like I say, I'm going to do a quick, well, not quick, but some videos on what I use. And what I use is trend lines, support resistance lines. I use the RSI. I use some basic things, basic patterns, but basically I look at price action, and that's my deciding factor. So price action is telling me that Bitcoin is strong, but it has made a really large move here. So the question is it time for it to take a rest? Is it going to bounce off of this resistance line that's hit right now and come back down to, say anywhere around on the dominance line, 65 or so, or right down to the 64 maybe, and then decide there whether it's going to return and start taking over again, or will it break all the way back down to where this channel goes, somewhere down the bottom again. I find that kind of highly unlikely, but the big question is, if it does that, has the altcoin season really begun in earnest? Or is it still Bitcoin that's king of the road here? Well, as you know, anyone who's been watching my videos, I tend to look at the weekly charts first to get an all out, a bigger picture. And so there we have the bigger picture. Nice W pattern here from the low here, and just a reverse, W pattern, and it came all the way up. But then it hit this big area of resistance and has been on a downtrend down. Now what that means is that generally Bitcoin dominance has been on a downtrend, which means generally the altcoins have been, as a whole, not any single one, as a whole, has been increasing in value on the coin market cap overall. And this nice beautiful move here where it came down, altcoins were taken over, and then Bitcoin grabbed a hold on this support line, and that was the bottom there, and it came right back up, and now it's hitting this here. So what does that mean? Well, there's something else we can look at too. It's called the ETH to Bitcoin, and we're on the weekly, and we can see this is Ethereum against Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, this means Bitcoin was increasing here, and then it is the value of Bitcoin has been, Ethereum has been increasing in value here, but it has dropped off against Bitcoin here. And now if we go to the daily, and we'll look at both charts here, we can see I drew a little bit of a channel here and a bit of a channel here, and then this is a trend line heading to the upside. And we can see that it's been coming down and been doing the same kind of thing, bouncing off the top of this channel. It just followed it nicely, but didn't really come back down to this bottom channel again. And it tried. I could draw a thinner one, a more middle one here, but it bounced off of that. And you can see that Well, if we just do that right now, oh, we'll do this. We'll go back here. We will take this and copy it because that's what I did with that other one. Clone, copy, clone. And now if we just kind of find where it hit the bottom there, maybe something like that. There we go. Yeah, that looks good because you've got a couple of points here. You've got a point there. You've got a high point here. And then a point here, points here, and then a point here. So that's a good place for a middle line. So it's following this narrow line channel down. And it has now reached, it has not touched this channel here. Instead, it's bouncing off of this support line here. You got points here. And there's more in the back there. You got these bottom ones here where it bounced off of that. Oh, sorry. No, those are the other ones. This creates a channel, but so it's bouncing off of this, the tops here. So the question is, in this one with the Ethereum against Bitcoin, will Ethereum break through this channel and begin a rise again? Which would mean, if it did that now this is against Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin. So that would mean that, and because so many of these altcoins are based on Ethereum and they follow Ethereum, that would mean that the alt season has once again begun in earnest. So what I'm doing is I'm waiting for this to see if it does indeed break through this trend line, this resistance, and holds for 3 days or so. If it does, then, or even a week, if it does, then alt season, in my opinion, has begun. At least a mini alt season. Because, oh, let's go here, we don't need that. Because we are actually in a long-term rise of Bitcoin right now. But at this point, if we look at the Bitcoin chart, at this point, if we look back here, go back to the weekly, this is a huge rise. Even on the weekly, these are huge candles. Okay, so it broke very nicely, very solidly, the 17,200 level, and we're at the end of the week. It's Friday, so unless you have a huge pullback now, it's basically held above this 17.2. And if we go on the days, the day chart, we can see that it's just solidly there. It broke above and it's been there for it held here on this day, and then you had 1, 2, 3 more. So we're on the third solid day, solidly above this line. So no question whatsoever. Has become a support line now. So I should actually make that blue. This is how I keep track of supports and resistances. So that's now a support line. And so what's it going to do? Is it going to continue up? Here's my thought. I think that if it is going to continue, it will easily make it to this 20,000 mark. The previous high of back here, the previous high of what are we at here? 19,891. So it will easily reach that. Now, if it's really strong, it will go to that and maybe even poke through it at least. If it's not so strong or has exhausted itself before that point, you'll see it, maybe see this blue line here, this ghost line? Well, that's sitting at about 19.6, and that's 19.5, 19.6. That's about where I would expect it to go if it's not going to actually solidly test this line. If it does doesn't quite solidly test this line, the actual high back here, then my opinion is that it will probably take a big rest and drop down, back down to at least 17.2, possibly even to this line here, because this is several weeks out now. It might come back down to 16.4 or 5 or thereabouts. These are the previous 16, maybe even 16.2. In which case, when it does that, if these altcoins are strong, and on the ETH chart, it has indeed broken through that channel that we were talking about here, then we can expect the altcoins to really take off. Now, here's the thing. Back in 2016 through 2017, altcoins just basically followed almost in lockstep what Bitcoin did. Now, it's a little bit different story, because back then, it was all the retail buyers and speculators on Bitcoin and the altcoins. It was a highly speculative market. It still is. But who's involved now, and really big time and growing, are banks, international banks, world banks, and national banks, commercial entities, the big boys, the whales, are involved this time. And we now have market exchanges where these big institutions can trade Bitcoin against other fiat currencies, so there's a lot of things they can do. And so this bull run, the big bull run that we have begun in Bitcoin, let's go back to Bitcoin, sorry. This big bull run here, see, this is the COVID March. Everything dropped off here. It started back here. This was the bottom of it, and it started back here slowly, and then it just took off. Okay, so the difference between this run and this run is that the big institutional money is in it now. Now they made it to a certain point, and it started coming back. Different market factors were involved. You got run up to the U.S. presidency and all that stuff in 2019, beginning of that, and so the markets became uncertain because the big boys are involved now, right? So it comes back down to reality and finds another bottom here that creates this trend line, and then it began its climb back up again. Now, what this probably would have made is a nice W here, and it probably would have come back normally back down to this one, and right around here somewhere, and then continued up, and that's a beautiful sign of a powerful move to the upside when you got a nice forming W. But what happened here was, instead of that, COVID happened, and it just affected everything. Everything shut down in the world over, so everybody was like, oh, what's happening? And that affected Bitcoin too. And so instead of a nice W, instead of stopping here and doing this, it actually went flying down. But look what it did. When everything was said and done, and we began to understand worldwide what this COVID thing meant and how to handle it, boom, the markets came back, and it took off right back to where it should have been. And here is where it should have been. So it had a bit of a rest there, consolidation, and then boom, it took off again. So now we're back on track. We're back with where it should be. But now the question is, will it continue its trajectory? Well, we know long term by the last chart there that it has by December next year, 21. I was saying in my last video, possible target of $320,000 per Bitcoin. Where did I get that from? Well, if you're watching my last video, that's what these ghost indicators are. These are weekly bars, and if we just show that, I'll just show that real quick. We'll just go down here and we'll just show them, and where they go is to the moon, people. That's the highest it goes, and if you go back to my last video, I'll explain what that is. Basically 320, I got about 320, I keep fiddling around with it, but it's basically around 320,000. Now it's saying 326, but basically around 320,000. It's very touchy when you set it up, and I'll show that too. One of these days I'll make a video on how to set that up. But anyway, we're looking at about close to $320,000 in, if you look down at the bottom, around December 21, right there, or there, 27th. But of course it's not going to be 27th. We don't know exactly the exact day, but this gives you a ballpark figure, the end of next year. So anyway, back to now. So if you are wondering, do I stay in Bitcoin or do I move into altcoins? Sell my Bitcoin and move into altcoins. Is it time to go into the altcoin season? That's the big question. I would say Bitcoin is still strong. I would say hang on to Bitcoin until it gets close to this. I'd say 19.5 or thereabouts, this top. See what kind of strength it still has, and you can do that by going down into the 1 day. Look at the 1 day, see what kind of strength it's got. Right now it's showing real strong bars, and you can go down even further into the 4 hour, and you can see that it's got some nice strength there. And you can see each time it hits a resistance, it kind of stalls and goes sideways a little bit. That's taking a breather. The market's taking a breather. Bulls and bears are trying to decide who's got control. And it's been clear that the bulls have been in control all the way up here. The breather's not very long, just a few days, and then boom, she carries on. The breather drops a little bit, but only back down to this support line, which was a resistance line, is now a support line. Dropped right to it, took off again, boom. And we had this nice little flag. It broke through that, and so the bulls are still well in control. It paused a little bit here, just under this resistance line, and then boom, broke up, and now it is a support line here on the 4. Now I have it blue because I look at the well, it's a support line, so it's blue. But I look mostly at the day chart. This is just to tell me when I'm getting close to whether I should exit or enter a trade. So my opinion, hang on to it till it gets a little bit further. We're at 18.6, another 1,000, and see what happens there. But just don't jump from one ship to another just because it got to that point. Wait till it either breaks through or breaks down. My guess is that it will. This is close enough now, 17.2. My guess is that it will hit or get close to that and bounce off and test this again. If it stays within this area here, then chances are it's making a decision, and it could break to the upside, and in which case, if it does, there's nothing holding it back. It's in new territory if it does that. And then obviously we're still in the Bitcoin season. But the altcoins will follow. Even if Bitcoin skyrockets, the altcoins will follow. But they just may not follow as fast. Where they will follow faster is if Bitcoin, what they'll do is they'll catch up. I liken it to gold and silver. Gold is usually the first mover, and then silver catches up. It lags, and then it catches up really fast and moves even further percentage-wise than gold. So that's my opinion here, is that if this bounced off back here and started doing a channel here, that's when the altcoins will really take off. And we'll look at that, and you can confirm that by going into here, the Ethereum Bitcoin. If it has broken through here and the Bitcoin is doing that channel thing, then these will just take off. Ethereum will just take off to Bitcoin. Also, you can never forget the dominance chart. Again, that may come down here like this, or it may break down, or if Bitcoin takes off above that 20,000 mark, you'll see this all, it'll just take off too. So anyway, there you have it, guys and girls. Hope you appreciate the video, and if you like what you see or heard, give me a like down below, and get rid of that. I don't need that. And if you want to subscribe, because I'm going to try and put these out more often, then hit subscribe. That would be great. I'm always trying to figure out how to quit this thing. Oh yeah, we do that. That pops up. And good night, everybody.